a womanizer. Oh, hey there. I just sing a little Faith, but I'll stop for you. Welcome to Mash on This, Mashable's daily culture entertainment show that gives you tomorrow's biggest news stories today, don't you know? Sponsored by Ally's hardest working dollar. I'm your host, a Guy Fieri-inspired Sanjay Gupta, also known as Dory Greenberg. On Mash on This, we give you a quick rundown of what we think is the best the internet has to offer. So be sure to tell us what you think in the comments, and we'll get to that at the end of the show. Don't be shy. Now, let's get into it. Our hearts go out to Senator McCain, along with his family and colleagues, as he fights one of his toughest battles yet, brain cancer. CNN has reported that the Arizona Republican senator is suffering from an aggressive glioblastoma tumor. Throughout his military and political career, the Vietnam veteran has been known as a fighter, and we have confidence that he'll bring the same give-em-hell attitude to his cancer-fighting process. This is a photo of young McCain in front of a T-2 Buckeye trainer when he was in the Navy in 1965, and it was taken 2 years before he was captured as a POW in North Vietnam. The picture has captured many people's hearts and spurred touching tributes after it was posted on Reddit. McCain's cancer diagnosis has also seen politicians from both sides of the aisle expressing their support, and we happen to think that one former president and one-time McCain opponent said it best. We wish Senator McCain the best. Sometimes folks will go out of their way to not speak to other people. For instance, every single time I walk out of my apartment, I'll put my headphones in, even if I'm not listening to music, because I'm a New Yorker and I hate everyone. But my antisocial tendencies are nothing compared to this high-ranking diplomat. In a New York Times interview, Donald Trump claims he was not able to converse with Japan's First Lady, Akie Abe. At a G20 summit dinner, he said despite being a terrific woman, she doesn't speak English. Times reporter Maggie Haberman questioned to what extent she doesn't know English, to which Trump said she didn't even know the word hello. But the truth has its way of coming out. Roll the tape.
But the fish and shellfish, fresh and tasty as they may be, are dependent upon the land, or more precisely, the nourishment flowing downstream into the inlet from the mountain forest. So, not only does Akie Abe definitely speak English, she speaks it well enough to give an entire speech in English. That one particularly was about climate change. So this means one of two things. One, Madame Abe pretended to not speak English so she wouldn't have to talk to Trump. Or two, Trump just assumed she couldn't speak English because he has a touch of the xenophobia. But if it's the first option, game recognized game. If the First Lady of Japan would teach a course on how to avoid people, sign me up, I will take it. I bet you will too. Travelers coming from some Muslim majority countries have cause for celebration today, since the laptop ban is finally over. Huzzah! The 4-month ban on passengers carrying laptops aboard U.S.-bound flights from 10 airports in the Middle East and North Africa was officially dropped as of yesterday, thanks to some new updates to security measures, according to a tweet from the Department of Homeland Security. The ban was implemented in March due to growing concerns that explosives could be concealed in the devices taken on board aircrafts. And while the ban on citizens coming from 6 Muslim-majority countries is still somewhat in effect, this is still a victory for innocent people who just want to be able to get some work done or watch a downloaded movie while they are up in the air. So speaking of up in the air, no, not the George Clooney film, but the air up above us, you know, the more boring version of air. The International Space Station has just become the first off-planet addition to Google Maps' Street View. And it's out of this world. Ooh. Astronauts helped capture the 360-degree panoramas of the space station's interiors, as well as views down to the Earth below. Typically, these kinds of images are captured by taking a camera and mounting it on a fixed mount and rotating around. But in space, no one can hear you scream, and And there are no tripods. So as project manager Alice Luce explained it, they ended up using a pair of bungee cords strapped in the module in a crisscross fashion with the crossing point defining where the camera needed to be. Then the astronauts had to take the pictures at defined angles, and then they floated around the camera to complete the set of images. It took up to 24 of these images to create a single panorama shot. Wow. In addition to these amazing images, some of the photos feature pop-up text descriptions, which provide background information about the equipment on display. According to the BBC, Google said it hoped to reinvigorate further exploration into the science and engineering involved in space travel. So, way to go, Google. Once again, you are one small step above the rest. Oh, I get it because of like the moon landing. Cool. The people who align themselves with the alt-right have developed their own little lexicon of words, which is intended to insult others, but mostly just makes no sense. For instance, the use of SJW, or social justice warrior, which is essentially a catch-all term for anyone who opposes conservative ideology. But the idea of wanting social justice and being active for that cause isn't a bad thing at all. Vice actually compiled a pretty thorough explainer list of all these weak put-downs, but there is a new one that they should add in there now, and it's friendzone. What started out as a bit in a 1994 episode of Friends evolved into what some see as a genuine relationship issue among men, and in the very recent past, the term has found itself coming out of the mouths of alt-right trolls, especially those within the men's rights subsect, who have a number of phrases that focus on ridiculing feminism and emasculation. Just as cuck, a shorthand for the 13th century word cuckold, is synonymous with weakness and unmanliness. In the alt-right world, the friend zone is no different. And a closer look at online conversation among men's rights activists is in particular showing a troubling link between the friend zone and misogyny. In a recent video by men's rights activist vlog, what's it called? Men Going Their Own Way. It claims the friend zone is an extension of feminist ideology, and the vlog's owner, John, is convinced that it means that men are no longer considered for sex. According to feminist activist Jean Hatchett, the friend zone is a loaded phrase used to pressure women into having sex. And I would bet that the grand majority of women watching this show right now have been put in a friend zone type situation at least once in their life. And we can all attest that it's incredibly uncomfortable, but now it has become downright offensive. There's a lot going on with this story, so I highly recommend you read Rachel Thompson's article about it on Mashable.com. There's no good segue from egregious alt-right shenanigans to this next story, so I'm just going to say it. Cotton candy burrito. Take a second and picture what you think that might be in your head. Great. Now grab your nearest trash can and look at this. No, it's not some weird diabetes scare tactic. It's confetti ice cream with thick pink cotton candy wrapped around it. And there is also some, quote, unicorn dust sprinkled inside, which I can only assume is PCP with pink and purple food coloring. This monstrosity comes from some Canucks who work at Sugar in Ontario. Because when you think of innovative Spanish-inspired food, you definitely think of Canada. Look, I know I'm hating pretty hard on this, and that's only because it's terrible. But some people are very much down for it. But aside from looking for their next sugar high, this creation brings up a good question of whether or not this thing should even be called a burrito, since Merriam-Webster's defines it as something specifically involving a flour tortilla. Also, the dynamics of holding a cotton candy burrito that also contains ice cream in your warm, smelly hands confuses me. It sounds like a real sticky situation that I refuse to be a part of. That's it.